Hello bookish people, I'm sorry it's been such a while. I've come back to my channel, a triumphant return, and I've brought this one with me.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, so I'm Emma. Stevie and I have been friends for 4 years now.
We originally met through YouTube.
Yeah.
We met at Summer in the City. We now work together.
Yes, so Stevie and I have gone from being friends through YouTube to friends in real life to colleagues.
Who are literally like separated by a floor.
Yeah. And next year we're maybe going to live together, so you know. So I used to do YouTube videos. I mostly just blog over at Howling Reviews now. And like I say, we're also working publishing, so
yeah. And we're here today because we have decided we're going to read the whole of the Man Booker Longlist.
Because we're crazy.
We always wanted to read a prize, and the Man Booker is the big one in the UK.
Yeah.
And I have mixed feelings about it, but I thought it would be good to at least give it a go once and try and read some of the things that have been longlisted. One of the reasons I decided I was going to read it this year, when I'd normally kind of shy away from the Booker list because I normally turn my nose up quite hard at anything that considers itself literary as just kind of reading snobbery. This year the list has been expanded out quite a lot. There is on the judging panel a crime author and a graphic novelist, and surprise surprise, the long list includes a crime book and a graphic novel, so I thought there might be a bit wider variety this year.
And a collection of poetry, which I don't think we've seen for quite a while either. So it has broadened a little bit than its usual spectrum, but it is still very literary.
So I don't read a huge amount of literary fiction. I did for university, and I then basically said no more. I needed a break, I felt literary fiction was very tied up in snobbery and a lot of kind of patriarchal literary norms. So that a lot of the books that were considered great were written by straight white men, and that was why they were considered great. I think that is definitely opening up, and I think you can see that in the long list that the Booker has produced this year. There are kind of women on there, there are people of colour on there. It's still not the best ratio, but
I think it's been getting better for about sort of 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely.
It's slowly getting there.
Yeah. And I worked on a book this May called The Map of Salt and Stars, which was a literary book about refugees that came out from kind of our literary imprint at the publisher I work for, and I absolutely adored that book. So that's taken me back to literary fiction a bit more. It's made me think, oh, maybe this could be for me as well.
I do think literary fiction is working its way more towards the masses in that because it's diversifying much more, it is creating a new audience pool that actually really want to hear about these experiences that maybe didn't or couldn't before because they just couldn't see themselves in the books. And I think that's the biggest difference for me since I started reading literary fiction, because I went the opposite route to you. When I finished my degree, I realised that I was actually craving that kind of depth in a way that I wasn't quite getting from the other books I was reading. So for me, like, I started reading more literary fiction and more non-fiction actually when I graduated, because that was just not an area that I touched before.
Last year, both our companies had a title shortlisted. Yep. So we couldn't possibly have made videos about it because we weren't impartial. But this year, neither of our companies has made it onto the list. So we thought we'd give them a read and see what everyone else is publishing and if there's any other good books out there.
Yes, so there are 13 titles on the long list. They call it the Man Booker Dozen. So if you guys aren't familiar with any of them, I'm just going to quickly list them off so that you can see what's on the long list and what we're going to be reading.
And I can put them on screen in a Dazzy After Effects.
Yes.
Here are some covers.
The first book on the list is Snap by Belinda Bauer.
Which is the crime one.
Yeah.
Which I've heard a lot of people talking about it specifically because they don't think it's the kind of book that would normally end up on this list. And basically because crime writer Val McDermott is one of the judges, they think she's finally given some screen time.
Some voice to it.
To a crime book.
The next one is Milkman by Anna Burns. I've not heard a lot about this book, so it will be...
I don't know much about this book.
It will be a complete surprise. The next one is Sabrina, which is by Nick... I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong. Donazo?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Apologies.
But that's the graphic novel on the list, and that I had heard things about before. A lot of I think it makes sense that it's on this prize in that a lot of quite literary names had been calling it out, even as a graphic novel, as something astounding. So as someone who reads a lot of graphic novels, I'm excited to get to that one.
Yeah, I don't read as much graphic novels as you, but everything I read that's graphic novel, generally she recommends to me, so I think it will be interesting.
I'm going to get the whole world addicted to graphic novels eventually.
Slowly but surely, one person by person. Then the next we have is Washington Black, which is by Essie Edigan. The next in the list is In Our Mad and Furious City by Guy Gunaratne.
And that is the one that is published by a Hachette company. So Emma works on the 5th floor, I work on the 3rd floor. That book is published by the 4th floor. So if we do have to root for one, it probably has to be that one.
I mean,
having read none of them yet.
Having read none of them yet.
That's where our allegiances, you know, kind of considering our jobs, should probably lie.
So there are a lot of debuts on the list this year, and this is one of the debuts. And I've heard a lot about the book. Not actually the plot itself, but I've had a lot of people talking about it and recommending it. And this is one of the ones which has one of my favourite covers as well. I love the cover for this book. The next one is Everything Under by Daisy Johnson. Now this is one of the ones that I'm really excited for, because I've read Fen by Daisy Johnson, which is her collection of short stories, and they are very kind of dystopian feminist fable, magical realism. So I'm really excited to read her new book, which I believe is of a similar vein.
Yeah, and I can very much get on board with magical realism.
And then the next one is The Mars Room by Rachel Kushner. I've not heard anything about this one either.
I've heard of Rachel Kushner a bit, but don't know much.
There's a great video on the Man Booker website, which is like them announcing the long list, and it's the judges all talking a little bit about the list as a whole and the reasonings behind why they picked the titles. And I think also from particular judges there is conversations about specific books, so I would recommend listening to that or watching that, because it's a really good insight to their judging criteria. And then the next is The Water Cure by Sophie McIntosh, which I have heard a lot about. It has an incredible cover and is actually the one I'm going to be reading first. So we've been to Waterstones today and we've picked up our first copies.
We got one each.
This is another of the debuts on the list this year. And I picked this one particularly because I've heard a lot about it. I'm really excited by what I've read about it. A lot of people have recommended it to me. And I think it is going to be a really engrossing read. And I think it's very similar to a lot of stuff I've been reading recently. So I'm very excited to see what this one has.
I only found out about it when Emma picked it up today, but I'd just finished reading Gather the Daughters, which was one of the Arthur C. Clarke shortlisted books, which it's reminding me of quite a lot with the idea of women and women's bodies and who possesses those. So looks interesting.
Next one is Warlight by Michael Ondaatje.
This year was actually the 50th anniversary for the Man Booker Prize, so they did the Golden Man Booker, they did the Man Booker of all Man Bookers, and I think they narrowed a shortlist down to 6.
It was 6,
and picked a winner, and that was Michael Ondaatje for The English Patient.
Yes.
So this is his new book, Warlight.
So it's the second time this year. He's having a great year.
Yeah.
Next one we have is The Overstory by Richard Powers, which I don't know much about either.
I have a friend who has literally sent me screenshots of various pages throughout Overstory. They've loved it so much, saying, look at this paragraph, look at this bit, it's so beautiful, it's so lyrical. So if I don't like that book, he might never talk to me again.
The next one is The Long Take by Robin Robertson.
That's the poetry collection.
This is the poetry collection.
Yeah, which I'm excited to read for just some variety.
Yeah.
And Picador publishes beautiful poetry. They publish people like Kate Tempest.
Next we have Normal Family by Sally Rooney. So I've read Conversations with Friends and you haven't?
I haven't read Conversations with Friends, but I did go on holiday with Emma while she read Conversations with Friends. So I was sat next to her the entire time with her going, ooh, this bit's interesting.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've read Conversations with Friends.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been Conversations with Friends adjacent.
It's the kind of book that when you start reading it, it's very all-engrossing and you can't find a point that you can stop at that feels like an appropriate point, because there's always something else that's about to happen. So it's very addictive, but I think that that's very translated in the characters themselves as well, and their kind of nature. So I'm really interested to see what Normal People is like, and if it's in a similar vein. Next and final one is From a Low and Quiet Sea by Donal Ryan.
And this is the book I decided to go with. I partially did this because it was one of the smallest ones, and I'm a lazy, slow reader, so I thought at least I'd get through it. But I mostly went for this one because I know know Ariel Bissett of BookTube fame loves this author and loved this book. I remember watching a video of hers right at the beginning of the year, I think, when she was talking about the fact that it was coming out, and she was so excited just at the prospect of it. So I thought I'd go for this one.
Ariel has very good taste.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. I feel like she's not going to leave me astray. I do worry, having said I'll read this whole long list, I'll read about 3.5 books before I get lost / have to read a load of books for work. But I'm going to give it a try.
It's a challenge.
We'll see how many we get.
So the shortlist gets announced on Stevie's birthday.
Yay! September 20th.
So we are going to try and read as many of them as possible before then, but the actual prize doesn't get announced, I think, until the 16th of October.
Yeah.
Was when we looked at it. So that does give us another month on top of that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll read the ones that aren't going to be on the shortlist first, and then we'll realise that we've done it perfectly.
That sounds like we're going to curse the ones we read first into not getting on the shortlist.
That's why I'm not going to, like, specifically pick the ones that I think are going to be shortlisted.
So you're going to try and read them in order of you don't think they'll win. You're going to read the least likely first.
No, I'm going to randomly read them. I'll randomly read them. But I think that's quite interesting to think about, like, which ones, having not read any of them, which ones we think might be on the shortlist.
Okay.
Because this is going to be a fun game.
Any of them. Predictions.
Yeah.
I really want the graphic novel to get on. The problem is that I want the unusual ones to win. I want the graphic novel and I want the crime book. Maybe the poetry book.
Yeah.
I want the weird ones. I'm always here fighting for the underdog.
So the shortlist goes down to 6. So at that point they'll cut out 7 of the titles. I think for me, probably, I think it's going to be The Water Cure.
Yeah.
Normal People.
I feel like the Michael Ondaatje has to get on.
Yeah. I think Sabrina could be on the shortlist. I think
I've
it's
heard
entirely
really
possible.
amazing things about it. Every person who's quoted for it has been...
I think Washington Black.
Okay.
And I also want to say the Daisy Johnson, just because I really love her work.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for this video. Let us know what your thoughts are on prizes and the booker, and if you've read any of these books or are planning to join us in reading a few. We'll make a few videos giving some updates on how we're going, even if that how we're going is I've given up, I don't like literary fiction anymore.
That's more likely to be her.
That's more likely to be me.
But in the meantime, we'll be tweeting and Instagramming and various social media platforming about it. So
you can follow along and see how we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I will see you in our next video, and Emma will see you in one soon as well.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.